Hello and welcome. This is Cherry Red TV. My name's John Repsch and I wrote the book about Joe Meek, the legendary Joe Meek. And it's a great honour for me today to have two of the original Tornadoes here. And I'm going to be getting a chance to interview them. And on the left is Roger LaVern. Roger LaVern was the keyboard player with the Tornadoes, and I understand he's got about 6,000 melodies up his sleeve. And he sometimes has been known of late to tinkle the ivories for charity. On the right of Roger is Clem Cattini, drummer extraordinaire, and he was the drummer on Telstar, of course, and he's worked with just about everybody in the business, and he's been on heaven knows how many number ones, over 40 number ones at the last count.
So I believe.
I would have lost count after 30 myself. But there we go. I want to just run through, and we've only got about 45 minutes here. I'd like to run through the main time that you were working with Joe Meek. But, of course, we've got to introduce that. You were originally with Johnny Kidd's Pirates, weren't you? You were a pirate.
Exactly, yeah.
And I understand you were on Shaking All Over.
I was. It was actually my first number one, which wasn't bad for my first one of my first recording sessions.
Yeah, and I mean, did you dress up as a pirate?
No, we didn't, funnily enough. Latterly, the group that followed us in did, but we didn't. We wore sort of waistcoats and things, but not sort of particularly pirate gear, no.
And what was it like working with Johnny Kidd and the Pirates? Was it
fantastic. To be honest, it was one of the best periods of my career, personally, because the music we played, and I mean, Johnny was a great singer. And I just regret the fact that he never made it as big as he should have done, because he was really good. I mean, we recorded load of Stack stuff, load of, and you know, EMI and their Wisdom. We did our whole album of that sort of stuff. And EMI turned around and said, "Oh no, this music will never sell." I know. So,
but it was rock and roll, wasn't it?
Exactly. You know, but
maybe that's what you liked about it the best. It was real rock and roll.
It was real raw, because I mean, we used to do rock and roll stuff.
And you're going back to, was it 57?
57, 58.
58.
Yeah.
Following on from there, I think you joined Tommy Steele's brother.
Yeah, Colin Hicks. Yeah, in Italy. I went to Italy. I did 3 months in Italy. Well, we was working with Johnny, and the work started to drop off. And Brian Gregg, who was with the Tornadoes eventually on bass, he knew Colin very well, and Colin had asked him if he would like to sort of go over there in Italy to tour with him. And Brian said, "Well, I'll ask the guys." And I didn't want to go, to be honest. I didn't want to leave John, because I like working with John. And it was one of those situations with Alan and Brian. If we don't all go, none of us can go. It was one of those things. So in the end, I agreed and I went, which was wrong anyway, because my first daughter had just been born. So I never saw her for 3 months, you know.
So you weren't with Colin Hicks for long?
No. Well, it was only about 3 months, but it seemed like 3 years, to be honest. It was too long.
But anyway, you left Colin, came back here.
Yep.
You were out of work, I take it.
I was indeed, yes. And skint.
The story goes that, well, it's your mate Alan Caddy, also who was in Johnny Kidd's Pirates.
That's right, yeah, the guitar player.
I understand he was informed by Michael Cox, who was a mate of his.
That's right.
That there'd been an advert in the NME.
That's right,
We think it was the NME. And they're looking for replacements for members of the Outlaws.
That's right, because Outlaws were leaving Joe because they were going to go on the road. And this was the idea. Joe wanted to replace, because they were a studio band like we were actually formed for originally.
Oh, yeah.
And Alan phoned me up and says to me, "What are you doing Saturday?" And I said, "Well, nothing. The Arsenal are away." Because, you know, if they
because you wouldn't have.
If they'd been at home, I wouldn't have gone. I'd have gone to football instead. Anyway, so he said, "Would you like to come with me down to this place in Holloway Road?" This guy called Joe Meek was looking for for a guitar player, basically. He said, and sort of give me a bit of moral support. I said, "Yeah, all right." So I went down with him. Went into the studio. There's a set kit of drums there, and Alan said to Joe, "Do you mind if my mate plays drums while I play guitar?" So you can imagine the racket, drums and guitar. Anyway, so we finished. Alan played a couple of numbers, and he was a very fine musician, Alan, in fact. And Joe said to him, "You know, you're a very, very good player. You've got the job. What about your mate? Does he want a job?" And that was it. That's the start of the Tornadoes.
So you were but in fact it wasn't even called the Tornadoes at that point.
No, it was nothing.
But then of course you've got Well, there was Heinz Burt was floating around somewhere. I'm not sure if he was already on the scene at that point.
Well, I'll tell you the story about that, because what happened is the Outlaws, Richie Blackmore had left the Outlaws, and Chas Hodges was going to play guitar with the Outlaws. So they were looking for a bass player.
Bill Kye, actually.
Or Bill Kye,
I
whichever
think,
one.
yeah,
one of the two.
Richie, I think, came a bit later.
Maybe,
I'll be
yeah.
pulled up. If I don't pull you up on that,
No,
people
that's
pull
fine.
me
No,
up
no,
on
no,
it.
no, no,
Yeah, I think Richie came about...
I know one of the guitar players had left.
Yeah.
And the idea was for Chas Hodges to play guitar. Anyway, they rehearsed, and they realised that Heinz couldn't play bass guitar. So Chas turned round to Joe, and this comes to the horse's mouth, and said, I don't want to play guitar because I'm not good enough, which he was, in fact, because they didn't want Heinz to play bass, so Chas went back on bass.
Yeah.
Because then Heinz was floating about as a spare. Joe had this spare bass player floating about, and that's where he formed the group round him.
Yeah, the spare... Well, Heinz, I mean, Joe saw a little bit more in Heinz than talent at playing the bass guitar, and he couldn't bear to lose him. I think that's what it was about.
No, exactly, yeah.
And in a way, we've got Heinz to thank for the fact that we got the Tornadoes together, because
in some
if
respect,
he hadn't fallen for this Heinz, you wouldn't we wouldn't have this great music.
Because I think personally, I think the Tornadoes were formed originally as a vehicle for Heinz's career rather than I don't know what you think about this, Roger, but I think as a career, as a vehicle for Heinz's career. But if Joe had been sensible, he could have had two major acts. He could have had the Tornadoes and Heinz, both making a lot of money and both being very popular. But because he pulled Heinz out and he didn't concentrate on the Tornadoes.
We're going to come to that. We'll come to that.
Yeah.
So, because I'm just moving... Actually, maybe it's time to just bring in Roger here and bring in how you started off. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of Clem and not enough of Roger at the start. Because you started off, you came from Kidderminster, and you'd already had some training and experience.
Well, yes, I came out of the Household Cavalry Regiment, the Royal Horse Guards, went back to Kidderminster and ended up as a company accountant and for a large carpet factory. But then I was asked to join a group. I mean, I was just playing the piano in pubs and that, but this group heard about me, and they came and visited my home and saw my mother, and I wasn't in at the time, and anyhow I got in touch with them, and I ended up as a member playing piano for the Danville Four. Now, Roger being...
Clem knows them, he remembers them.
Roger,
did you play with them?
No.
They must be the only one you didn't play with.
Yeah.
Well, I was always a little bit ambitious, and it soon became Roger LaVern and the Danville Four.
Naturally.
Which didn't go down too well with the Danville Four, so we very quickly split up. And then I changed my name for about 2 days to Buddy Guy.
Oh, great.
Which didn't work.
Very inventive.
And then I formed a group with my my brother playing drums, and a very young Stan Webb, who later went on to, I think a rated guitarist, went on with Chicken Shack and
Fleetwood Mac.
Fleetwood Mac, yes, Fleetwood Mac.
Right.
And I was forced to sack Stan, because everything he played was like the Shadows. He was on a Shadows kick. Now, I love the Shadows, but I didn't want every tune to be like Hank Marvin, you see. So I sacked young Stan, and his father came round. He was very angry because his son had gone home in tears, and the father wasn't too pleased, but there you have it, you know.
So that was the best thing you ever did for his career, because without that he might have still been with the...
He could have been with us, and he could have been plunged to his depths.
I was running dances in Kidderminster, and I had a bouncer called Mick the Flick, and he only used to have to walk towards a table and everyone would calm down, you know. But he was quite a good singer, apart from the fact that during his singing they called him Mick the Flick because he kept going like this.
Oh, did he?
And he was, when he was singing, he was doing that.
Hope he's not watching this now.
Well, he could be, but the point is...
I want to move you on,
yes.
Because I think you came to London. You were living in London somewhere, weren't you?
Yes, I came to London, and it was with that group, actually, with my brother and with a guitarist called Nick Miller. We came to London, and the only gig we actually had was on stage at the Walthamstow Granada between the films on Sundays. And they seemed more interested in me, the people, and agents and what have you. They weren't interested in Nick, and they weren't interested in my brother. So I was living in this flat with a gas ring in Highgate, and I had to send my brother and Nick back home to Kidderminster. I couldn't finance them, you know, really.
You'd heard of Joe Meek?
I'd heard of Joe Meek, and I was looking for Joe Meek, and evidently Joe Meek was falling out with an awful lot of people, because I would ring companies and ask for Joe Meek, and they'd say, "Don't mention that name here," and slam the phone down on me. And this happened more than once. And in the end, I found he was working for EMI, so I sent a letter to EMI, and they sent back my own letter, and just in the corner they put "Try 304 Holloway Road." So I did.
Which you did?
Yes.
And you came up to, I haven't asked you what you thought. When you first went to Holloway Road, what did you think of 304?
Well, I didn't really think anything because I
But
mean,
had you not been in, you've been in some big, you've been in Abbey Road, did they not record?
Oh, God, yeah, we recorded Shaking All Over in,
I mean,
just before, this is pre-Beatles.
You must
just
have
in case-
expected something a little bit more salubrious.
No, I didn't even think about it, you know, to be honest, John. It was just a question of, you know, that I'd only gone there to be a support for Alan.
I see, yeah.
The whole idea of doing anything there didn't really enter my head.
But you knew Meek had made Johnny Remember Me there? Or maybe...
Yeah, I didn't actually, no, because we'd not long come back from Italy, so I didn't really know what was going on in England at that time.
Roger knew that about Johnny Remember Me, didn't
Because
he?
remember,
he had a bit of a name.
Our first keyboard player was Norman Hale. Before
yes.
Roger.
That was Love and Fury. I think you said that was
right.
one of your favourite Tornadoes tracks, didn't you?
That's right.
Love and Fury.
Just before Roger, we had the pleasure of Roger joining us.
Boogie Norman.
That's
Boogie
it.
Norman, yes, Boogie Norman. Still about.
So you went up to Joe's.
Joe sent me a telegram. I wrote to Joe, and he sent me a telegram: "When you receive this, come and see me." So I went to see him, did an audition for him. I was amazed at how grotty it was, the studio, and with the ceiling falling down in the corner, and this piano with the pins on the hammers. And of course, Joe, during the audition, he said, "Do you have any compositions, Roger?" And foolishly, I said yes, and I went into them, and I found that Joe nicked one of them, actually, of my compositions. And I had a cup of tea with him, and I got through the audition. I was walking on out, happy, you know, the great Joe Meek. And he said, "I want you to come tomorrow and meet the boys." So I came the next day.
Yeah, before you came back the next day.
Oh, yes. That very first day, now this is crazy, really. That very first day, as I was leaving Joe, I was just beginning to walk down the stairs. He said, "By the way, Roger, I don't ever want to see you in this studio again with grey hair." And I was quite shocked, and I had to go to a little Jewish hairdressing shop in Stoke Newington Church Street with two little old ladies and bogey myself in the back of the shop and get my hair dyed black.
He actually wanted it black, did he?
Yeah.
Now we know why, don't we? Obviously, you know.
So I thought he was in the blonde people.
Well, Hines was blonde. He didn't want anybody else.
Oh, he didn't want to clash.
He didn't want to clash. Oh, absolutely
So what colour did you have to dye yours then?
Me, it just dyed. I didn't dye it. I didn't. No
so
colour
anyway,
whatsoever.
you came.
Yes, I remember that first day with the boys. Clem was smoking Senior Service.
Correct.
I was smoking Peter Stuyvesant. And we had a jam session, you know. We just had to bang about, and evidently, much to your mistake, you thought I was all right, you know. He found out later.
No. You did the job at the time. That's what it was wanted. You know, I mean, God. I mean,
I know because at that time earlier on. It seems that Roger didn't have the blues or R&B feel about, but he has got it now. I've heard it, but in those days, and I think perhaps that might have been.
I've been all around the world. I've played all over.
In fairness, you know, like when we were eventually with Billy Fury, you know, as his backing group before we had the record of our own. I mean, we did an album with Billy at Decca. And Roger played all the sort of the stuff well. I mean,
and we did the 13-week Radio Luxembourg.
That's
series.
right, a series with him. You know, Roger played all the sort of rock and roll stuff, all right. You know, oh yeah.
You were happy with that?
Well, a lot of those tracks, actually, we've just been in the hit parade with a lot of those tracks on that DVD.
Have we really?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, that's right.
On the 10th of March 2008, we were number 10 in a hit parade. And for 71 years old, that's not bad.
Not bad.
Right, I've got to take you back because we've actually skipped, we've jumped.
I know, yes.
We've jumped to this audition.
That, yeah.
You had this thing together. But in fact, before that, you were the Charles Blackwell Orchestra, weren't you?
Well, we weren't formed as a Charles Blackwell. We were formed as Joe's backing band for the thing. Like we eventually did Wild Wind with John. We did stuff with
John Layton.
And stuff with bless his heart, Don Charles. We did quite a lot of stuff with Don
Andy
Charles.
Cavell, Alan Klein. Although Roger was on some of those. Some of those were later as well.
Yeah,
3 coins in a sewer
and all that. That's
and we were getting £7.10 for a session, which was a lot of money.
You actually got some money there.
Which took a bit of doing to get it, but we've got it. But that was the thing. And then, of course, John Layton's record got in the charts with
Johnny Remember Me.
Johnny Remember Me, and they got a tour together with John and Billy Davis, who was big at the time. And I forget who else was on that tour. Can you remember? I can't remember. I know it was John and thing, and they got Charles Blackwell to be the musical director.
That's it.
And that's why we were called the Charles Blackwell Orchestra
on
that tour.
Were you on Sunless Is She?
Yes, I certainly
was.
Yes.
I like that one.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, we were on that. Yeah.
Some good drumming on that one.
No, not really. I can't play it now.
Who was the drummer?
Anyway, Roger LaVern, wasn't it?
Who am I? Why am I?
Anyway, we move on. You're backing Billy Fury. You do Love and Fury, because that was the Norman Hale days.
That's right.
Although Norman, it seems, didn't really hit it off, or was there some little problem there?
I've yet to find out the story, because I still keep in touch with Norman, because he lives in Switzerland.
Oh,
and
really?
I'd love to find out the story about what happened to, because one minute he was there for 2 weeks, and then suddenly disappeared.
Yeah.
And Roger turned up. So I don't know actually what happened. I think maybe it was something to do, I don't know, maybe the sexual thing. I don't know. Who knows, you know. Nobody really seems to know.
I heard that he was, I think Alan Caddy told me he was too show busy.
Yes, possibly.
Show busy, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And Joe couldn't, there was a little bit of personality conflict there.
Yeah, because I mean, he was a Liverpool lad anyway, so, you know, I think possibly his Liverpool humour didn't go down too well with Joe.
Was he Liverpool or Southampton?
Yeah, no, Liverpool.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
So you did Love and
He was
Fury.
a scouser.
You did Love and Fury, wasn't a success. But then you come on the scene, Norman leaves, you come on the scene, Roger, and then there's this Breeze and I.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right,
yes.
The Breeze and I, you recorded the Breeze and
That's
I.
right, yes.
Maybe you could fill us in on, because this is how we get into Telstar.
Well, yeah, we recorded the Breeze and I, and then I'd found out, because we were touring at the time with the Fentones.
You had a bet with the Fentones. They did the Mexican, didn't they?
That's right, yes. And I found out that they recorded the Breeze and I. They were going to release it. That thing. I phoned Joe up, and I said, Joe, you know the Breeze and I, the Fentones are recorded. They're going to release it by the end of the week and get it out quickly. And he said, oh, don't worry. I've written this thing because he'd been watching Telstar going up. The thing. He said, I want you to come back at the weekend because we were working in Yarmouth at the time. He said, I want you to come back. And he said, no, I've got this song that I've written, which we're going to record, which was turned out to be Telstar. So that's really, so in some ways, the Fentones did us a favour.
Well, it seems like it, doesn't it? So you came back, you were working at Great Yarmouth back in Billy Fury, and you came back on the Saturday night
after the show.
After the show, you get back to London or wherever it is, Wood Green.
Usually in my van.
Always in Roger's van, good old Roger. He was the saviour.
Was it A4 van?
No,
I never charged them either.
No, and the best bit
I think the interest must be mounting up by now.
And the best bit of it, Roger lent me his van for some
reason. I lived
in
Walthamstow then.
He lived in Walthamstow and I lived in
So we used to come down the A12 and come through Walthamstow.
Yeah.
And Clem lived in...
I lived in Wood Green, didn't I?
Olympia.
Olympia at that time, yeah.
And so on this weekend, he dropped me off at my flat in Walthamstow, and I very kindly let him borrow the van for the weekend, so he could take Anna out.
That's right, whatever, yeah.
And it was arranged that he would pick me up on the Monday afternoon to go back for the evening show in Great Yarmouth. He must have driven straight through Walthamstow, completely forgot me, and just left me, and I missed the first show.
That was on another occasion. That wasn't.
This was in Yarmouth. This was this was before Telstar.
This was on another occasion.
Yeah. Right. So you come down. You get you get back about 2 o'clock in the morning, as was
absolutely.
the thing. Yeah. And on the morning of Sunday, you start your session about 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
and you go on all day long session with playing this over and over again.
And then Monday morning as well. We
yes,
still
of course.
continued to doing it, trying to finish it.
We were running out of time because
yeah.
we had to get back to Great Yarmouth.
To do a show.
Did he have anything in mind? Did he say, look, I've got this spacey thing that I want,
No.
there's a rocket going up, and did he tell you about the satellite?
No, the thing was, I mean, it's just another thing, actually, a thing that we don't, as musicians, get as much credit as we deserve for the production of Telstar, because the thing is, I mean, you've heard the infamous tape of Joe singing over...
Oh, I've heard that.
Yeah,
yes,
well, exactly.
yes.
That's what we were given to learn off of. Now, the thing is, we had to arrange it. I mean, Joe said it's a rocket, so I thought, oh, it's got to be a sort of a moving on rhythm, which I played, you know, it's that sort of thing. We did a key change in the middle, which, I mean, Joe didn't know anything about
Joe
that.
used to come in originally and just lard it to us and
That's
said,
right.
all right, boys, got it.
Got it, and then that's it.
He did go, we've got to give credit where credit's due. He did put something, I mean, the bit that you were talking about, the la line, that was, I don't know what time in the morning he was doing that. But the following day, breakfast time, these la-las were translated onto the clavioline. This Dave Adams guy, who was staying there at the time, he was supposed to have translated. Joe saying, no, don't want it like that, don't want it like that, do this. And eventually they got this thing on the clavioline, and that's supposed to be, because it went through about 3 stages.
Yeah, but all we got, you see, all we received to record it was the melody played on the clavioline.
On the clavioline,
there was no arrangement to it. There's no how it goes, what the chords are. Alan sat down and wrote the chords because for Roger and for
well, this
Hines.
is why he got professionals like you.
Well, maybe so, but the thing was, we still didn't get as much of the credit. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Joe was an absolute genius as far as sound was making sounds was. You know, he was a genius, but I still, you know, and I've said this so many times, he was a musical moron.
Yeah.
As far as music was concerned, he hadn't got a clue. So the thing is, Joe Meek,
He was also very bad at business.
Yeah, hold my hands up. You know, thanks, Joe. You did a great job. I mean, Telstar, you know, even now doesn't sound dated. But the thing is, we don't get the credit, the musicians in the band at that time, for what we contributed to it. You know, we had to arrange it. We're the ones.
This is the opportunity now.
Well, that's why I'm saying it.
I mean, Alan and yourself, who were supposed to be the ones who did a lot of the arrangements on these things.
We've been about, yeah.
And so we've got. He asked. I know he said. You told me he wanted a moving rhythm.
Yeah, exactly.
And you did something along the lines of the Johnny Remember Me Wild Wind.
Yeah, no,
galloping.
yeah. In actual fact, he said to me it's to do with a rocket going up at Telstar. And I said, well, it's got to be a moving rhythm. It must be, you know. Because the thing is, that's why I played it with brushes on the snare drum.
This galloping.
Well, it was in fact, it was like a disco rhythm.
Do that again.
It was a disco rhythm, in actual fact.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, it would have been a disco rhythm because it had to be a movement. And Alan, the same thing with the rhythm guitar. And George, in fairness to George, was a very fine rhythm guitar player, wasn't he?
That's right. Yeah.
And you know, and that was the thing that we contributed. We did the arrangement. You know.
Alan Caddy said that because George, and George has told me this before, he wasn't able to play the rhythm fast enough. So this was linked up with Alan playing the guitar electrically, the rhythm. Electrically.
Yeah.
So the two of them did that together.
So,
And then there's the other thing with Hines. If Hines is on it, and
God knows, that's another mystery. Who
but
knows?
I tend to think he probably was. I think he was on it. But anyway, he's supposed to overdub this this second bit of bass, which had a lump of sponge stuck between the strings, and every fourth note, boom, 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 boom. That so it thickened it up, and also besides the hi hat, weren't you doing the bass?
Hi-hat. No, it was done on the snare drum.
On the snare drum.
Yeah.
On the snare drum.
And then I
thought
did
it was
the
on the
offbeat.
hi-hat.
No, I did it on the snare drum. I played it with brushes. I played that on the brush with brushes on
yeah,
the snare
and
drum.
there was a bass though. You did bass as well, didn't you?
I did bass drum, yeah, just quarter. But the only thing with I must add, but the reason that Hines put sponge underneath his strings was basically because there was no note. All you got was a thump, 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 thump. So it didn't matter where his fingers were, whatever came out, it was just a noise. Because, you know, basically he couldn't play, you know. I mean, simple as that. And that's why the sponge was done. I mean, even on stage he used to use it, didn't he? I mean, he never, I mean, to play I mean, it took me 30 years with the Tornadoes to find a bass player that actually played, you know.
It's amazing you got such a powerful sound and such a clear, crisp sound.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind that Heinz was not a good player.
Yeah.
So, of course, there's the other point. You all had to clear off. You did the full day.
Well, we actually ran out of time. We had to get back to Great Yarmouth for the early evening show.
And of course, you've got another record there. There's the B-side you had to do.
Oh,
there's the Jungle Fever.
Yeah, there's another story there, Roger, isn't it? Now, who wrote Jungle Fever? And this is how Jungle Fever appeared, because we were sitting in the studio. Joe had said, I'm just going to go downstairs on the phone. So off he went. And I started playing this sort of jungle rhythm. Roger joined in, Alan joined in, George joined in, Hines joined in, and we did this. He come running up and said, oh, I like that. He said, we'll record it. So we recorded the backing track.
You did the backing.
Next thing I know, it comes out as Jungle Fever, B-side of Telstar, written by...
Well, don't you know?
Yes, I do know. you mentioned...
I think his name's Jeff Goddard.
Jeff Goddard.
Well, Jeff Goddard, I mean, the thing is, as you well know, if you write the melody line, your name goes down as the composer. But then, listen. Really, I think you should all have been credited with that, because you talk about needing credit. Goddard as well, because, I mean, that's the melody line. It's the melody line people think of, although maybe that's being a bit unfair, because it's the whole feel, it's the whole thing.
Exactly.
Rather like Telstar, you don't just think of the melody line and with Telstar, you think of the whole thing, and without the rhythm, without that great jam.
I mean, it's like having a cake. You know, you can't put the icing on the cake if there's no cake.
That's right.
So the thing is, we made the cake and he put the icing on it because he played. But
it should have had your
exactly. It was
total names.
It was written by all of us.
Should have done.
Completely written by all of us.
Then you might have got a few royalties out of it.
Well,
that I understand was his payment for it, because Joe brought him in the next day just to put the melody line, because, as you say, you all had to clear off. If you weren't performing at Great Yarmouth, we wouldn't even be talking about
this,
Jeff now. No. But then that's how it worked out, and but
there was a lot of
but
things.
it was a brilliant, it's a marvellous record. To me, it's a fantastic record. I would never, and this isn't about me, this programme, but I would never have written that book were it not for Telstar. I mean, you don't go and write a book solely because of Telstar, but Telstar was the inspiration. Without the inspiration there, I wouldn't have been led on to all these other things. I don't think it's been equal, that record. I know a lot of people will probably argue with that. There's
only one person who wouldn't agree with you. That was that DJ. What was his name? Who hated it.
Oh, David Jacobs.
David Jacobs slaughtered us.
That's right. Yeah.
He was so rude to us. We did, didn't we? Did that?
Ivan Novello.
No, it was another programme.
He did the Ivan Novello where the organ let me down again.
Let you down again, yes.
And at the end, David Jacobs said, well, yes, he said that was Telstar, but it sounded a bit different.
Yeah. No, but I mean, he was absolutely so rude to us because he hated the record. He hated the band.
He said it sounded like a steamroller.
Yeah, something stupid, you know. Because, I mean, just for some reason, he did not like us and he did not like Telstar. And it was after the show, we'd done a show, I think it was Thank You Lucky Stars.
I thought it was this. It's supposed to be this one. This, by the way, is the Ivan Novello Award. Joe got one, and the other one was handed over to the publisher, Roy Berry of Ivy Music. And that's the Roy Berry Ivy Music one. Joe's, I think, is with his family.
Probably, yeah.
But yes, wasn't he supposed to have come muscling into the bar and?
Oh, he was so rude to us. Yeah, I mean, in fact, I virtually had to separate because Brian Gregg was on bass with us then. I had to separate Brian from thumping him. You know.
Well, there was he did actually put something else in the newspaper as well, because I have the newspaper cutting. And we had come down the charts by that time from Telstar, and we were onto other things, onto Globetrotter and things. And it was an interview with David Jacobs, and he was asked about if there's anything he particularly likes currently about the business. He said, yes, he said, one of them, I don't have to listen to that terrible Telstar anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I saw him. He used to call it music from a third-rate ice show.
That's right. Well, I saw him 2 years ago on a show. We were doing a show and he was on the show. And I actually pulled him. And I said, you don't remember us, do you? He went, no, why should I? I said, yes. I said, because you was the rude man that slaughtered us and was so rude to us. We were the Tornadoes. We recorded Telstar. I said, oh, you've probably forgotten that, haven't you? And I said, but the thing is, I said, people still know us, but a lot of people don't remember you. And walked away.
For just bringing things right up to date, in 1995, I actually rang David and asked him to attend a charity show. And he said, why on earth would I want to come to boring Bromley?
Yeah, well,
that was it, really.
Yeah, well, there we go. That sums that man up, doesn't it? So there we go.
He's a marvellous
I mean, Carl
I do
Denver,
like David Jacobs.
Well,
quite. Yes, so anyway.
But anyhow, we were in Great Yarmouth and if you want to tell me about Chris Hutchins, what happened?
Tell me.
First of all, Alan, I always looked upon Alan as quite superior. He was a great musician.
Oh, he's good. He was a very good musician. He was trained
George, not
violinist.
quite good, and I looked upon
That's very nice.
favourably.
Thank you very much.
And Alan was quite sort of up there, you know. And
he was, yeah, in fairness.
Chris Hutchins from the New Musical Express rang me. I had just come down the seafront and I went into the administrative offices of the theatre to pick up the mail, and they said, "Oh, we've been looking for you. There's been a phone call for you." And he's ringing back. So I just had a cup of tea, waited a little while, and the phone rang, and it was Chris Hutchins from the New Musical Express.
That's right.
And he said, "Who am I speaking to?" I said, "Roger LaVern from the Tornadoes." He said, "Oh, Roger, I've been desperately trying to get in touch with somebody from the group." He said, "You're number 12 in the charts." Oh, I went...
Yeah.
I mean, I was a little old country boy. This was incredible, you know.
Age
and
20?
I was so excited, you know. And he said, "I'm going to come up. We're going to have a meeting." We did it at the Carlton Hotel, actually.
We did, yeah.
So I was just finishing my tea in the offices of the theatre. The phone rang again. Chris Hutchins. "Roger, thank God you're still there. I made a mistake. You're not number 12. You're number 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
God.
And then I just wanted to find the boys to come to the theatre, because we all split up during the day.
That's right.
And the first one I came across was Alan Cattini.
Alan Cattini, yeah.
And I was all bubbling, you know. "Guess what, Alan? Guess what? We're number 10 in a hit parade." He went, "So what?"
Yeah,
And he,
yeah. That was Alan. That was Alan. And I think it was the following week that I was in the toilet, and also I get a knock on the door, and I said, "Alan, look, do me a favour." I said, "Can't I go anywhere without getting disturbed?" And he went, "Just thought I'd let you know. You should have a look at this." And the subject I'm doing, we were number 1. And that was the following week.
And what did you say? Oh,
I went,
God.
I went, "What's number 1? He said, "Telstar." He said, "Oh," and he didn't seem too phased about it, you know. And that was it. Suddenly we were number 1.
Well, that's amazing.
That's
your second number 1 then?
I put it down to the fact that he'd already had the fame with Johnny Kidd and the Pirates, so it was a bit of a,
exactly.
you know.
So we were, you know, it was sort of like...
But I mean, coming from the country as I did, it was the biggest, nicest thing to happen, you know. It was like winning the lottery or winning the pools or something, you know, really.
And it could have been. It could have
been.
But
what did other people say? You know, if you say, "God, you're number 1," how did you get that incredible sound?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we were asked many a time. I mean, God, you know, the thing with, how did we know? Because when we left the studio, I mean,
we'd put all the basic stuff down.
Yeah.
But okay, admittedly, I don't think it was strong enough in some areas. Yeah. So whatever Joe was doing
certainly made
with
it strong enough.
With his studio boys and that, you know, and they put it together, and you heard the end thing, and it was wonderful, you know.
When he sent me the, I mean, because I was asked, "What did you think of it?" I said, "I never thought anything at the time because it wasn't finished." And then when he sent me the acetate of the finished art, I couldn't believe it. But I mean, no way in a million years would I ever have thought. Just shows what do I know? I mean, shaking all over. I never ever 1 minute ever thought it'd get to number 1. I never even thought it'd get in the charts. You know, I was quite embarrassed actually playing on a record called "Shaking All Over." I'm a musician.
Well, actually,
you know.
when I first heard it, I remember us in the little dressing room across the road in Great Yarmouth, and we were playing this.
Oh, that's
was
right,
it a demo or something?
Yeah, I had my little player, didn't I?
I just couldn't see it.
No.
I think I dismissed it as Mickey Mouse music. You know,
Alan called it Muffin the Mule music.
I couldn't. I just could not see. It was so different. It was like. I mean, Sean Connery gave us a good plug. When Dr. No came out, he actually said, "I will never forget when the film was launched, Dr. No, because it was launched exactly the same time as Telstar by the Tornadoes."
Yeah. And Maggie, of course.
But of course, when it started going up the charts, I got to like it.
Yeah.
So none of you were that keen on it at the start. I suppose partly because
it was so different.
You weren't expecting that sound because you got all the rhythm, but the melody line. What he'd done with that melody line, he'd overdubbed it. He speeded everything.
I put a very weak melody line on, which was overdubbed all over then, you know, to boost it up, because we had to shoot off the Great
That's right, yeah. I mean, to be honest, there's so many people that come up to me and claim that they played on Telstar, and I can't believe it. You know, say, "Oh, I did the melody line." And somebody else said, "Oh, I did the melody." It's rubbish. You know, The only one that we know, like Roger said, well, after we'd left, was
Jeff.
Jeff Goddard, because the thing is, we hadn't got time. Roger had put the melody on for him to copy, basically, and that was the only one. But everybody, you know.
But Jeff was doing lots of stuff in the studio there all the time.
Yeah,
so,
all the time, yeah.
And so
he was like
we
Joe's,
went back and took care of the Great Yarmouth, the shows and everything, and while we were there, stuff was being done in the studios, and that was it, you know.
We went on tour the next year with Billy. Joe had signed a contract with Parnes that we would back Billy for the next autumn, for the next spring tour, like the January. Of course, suddenly we were #1 in the charts. And we were on stage backing Billy, and we were allowed to do Telstar. That was all we were allowed to do.
The problem was...
we never even had our own spot,
we had a real nightmare. I borrowed a clavioline from a pub.
That's right, yeah.
Which, literally, while we were playing, the clavioline would go out of tune. You're playing one note. You can't go wrong. It's one note.
Yeah.
And it'll suddenly go,
it's monophonic, isn't it?
And it goes completely out of tune with the 3 guitars then.
But you all had to tune up to the clavioline.
We did.
We did, start with. But
in the afternoon, yes, we all tuned up.
And you were saying that Larry Parnes, you told me this previously, Larry Parnes decided, well, we don't want a clavioline anymore, we'll have a concertina, wasn't it?
It was a great big accordion.
Accordion,
remember that one?
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
That would have been terrible.
There was
I
another
hated
brain
that thing.
box, he was.
From Jennings in Charing Cross Road.
There was a lot of arguing, I understand, between Joe and Larry. They couldn't really hit it off as well.
I mean, this is the reason we never went to America. Because the thing is, obviously, Telstar was #1 in America as well, which we were the first British band ever to get #1 in America.
Before the
everybody else, just in case anybody was interested.
Everybody else came second.
Yeah.
I'm quite proud of that.
And what happened is, because we'd signed this contract to do this tour, Larry Parnes wouldn't let us out the contract unless we went to America with Billy Fury.
Billy who?
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is what they thought. I mean, as much as I admired Billy, and I loved working with Billy, and I always thought he was probably one of the finest rock and roll singers of his time, they didn't know Billy Fury in America. So we never went because Hines and Joe couldn't, not Hines, Larry Parnes and Joe couldn't get their act together. So we never went to the States.
Still, you did a 13-day tour of Ireland, didn't you?
Yes, we certainly did, yeah.
I remember us having a standoff meeting with Parnes. We'd been rehearsing for Billy at the Roaring Twenties in Carnaby Street.
That's right, yeah.
And we rang Parnes to go and see if we could see him. He wouldn't even pay for the taxi to go.
Wouldn't pay for anything.
And when we got into Parnes' place in Great Cumberland Place, he had a clear desk apart from our contracts. And really, he shot us down in flames. You know, it was either do as he said or...
Well, yeah, so this was the thing, you see. When Joe decided to sign with Parnes as co-managers, I told the guys, because I'd had dealings with Parnes in the late 50s when I was doing the Larry Parnes rock and roll shows. Oh. And I said to them, whatever you do, don't sign anything. Because I know what Parnes is going to do, I know what he's going to offer us, so just refuse. And it was the old bit, if you don't sign the contracts, we'll get a different band in. And I said, no way, because I think people then knew who the Tornadoes were. I mean, I knew enough press people to go at the press and say, listen, this is what's happened. So I didn't, but unfortunately, George, again, was one of the protagonists, decided, oh, we better sign, otherwise we'll lose the job. And I don't know if you know this, but I didn't sign the contract, and I was getting over £100 a week.
100?
Then,
you told me it was. Yeah. You told me it was about £5 more than the others.
No, I was getting £100 a week.
Oh, you didn't even tell me that. Then.
No, I was getting £100 a week.
You were coy
because
with
the thing is, I refused to sign the contract.
Yeah. If I'd have known, I would have charged you for using my van.
And Roger, I'd have been pleased to pay it.
we did a gig. This is absolutely the truth. We did a gig between the films one Sunday because I was still doing that at Walthamstow, and we didn't talk about what we were going to play. We actually got on stage and the lights came on, and I said, I turned to Clem, what are we going to do then, Clem? And he said, how about Chattanooga?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Chattanooga Churchill, that'll do. And it's just me and Roger, he's playing piano, and I'm playing drums in this I mean, in those days, you know, the film audiences were absolutely packed, obviously, you know, because it was between the films. And well, it went down well, though, didn't it?
Yeah, well, we did it. It was a bit
The
of
money
rock.
was
We used to
rubbish,
do
but-
Red River Rock and stuff, so a bit of
The money was
fancy.
rubbish, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually.
Mind you,
yeah.
pay for the petrol to get back to Yarmouth.
Yeah.
I understand one of the reasons of the problems in the band was Heinz and the relationship between Heinz and Joe, and perhaps you felt that there was a little bit of favouritism going on there.
Well, it was. I mean, I didn't realise at that time. It took me about 3 months to realise because Joe, I don't know, for some reason, put me in charge of the band. I suddenly became the leader, and I had to make sure that everybody turned up.
I called him the mother hen.
That's what he used to call me. Anyway, the thing was, Joe would say to me, make sure the guys all turn up in white shirts and whatever it is. Every time, you could see in every photograph, every time we turned up to have a photograph, Heinz was in something completely different. And it took me 3 months to realise, oh, hang on a minute. What Joe had done was made sure that we all looked the same, but Heinz stood out and looked different.
I've
And
actually
this
got
was-
that photograph with me, actually.
It's true, isn't it, Rog? You know, like he'd have a striped shirt on and we'd have white shirts on. Because obviously Joe was pushing Heinz's career, you know.
I would have thought having Heinz there as a focal point would have helped the band, and when he left,
Well, it
then
didn't help. Yeah, of
he
course.
took what little glamour the band had
Oh,
with him.
thank you, John.
Sorry,
No, I know what you're saying. No, you're probably right. But the thing was, you see, Heinz was only with us for 8 months.
so I say glamour. You were all professionals. You were Alan Caddy,
Yeah.
Roger. You're all professionals. Heinz was just a kind of
Yeah.
I
I
don't know.
was glad when he left because he used to corrupt Roger. Didn't
Ah,
he, Rog?
there
Or
was
was
a-
it the other way round, Rog?
Well, whatever they say about Heinz, Heinz and I were out every night
Yes,
with the
yeah,
girls.
yes,
Okay, every
yes.
night after the show, we'd
Which
always
angered Joe more than anything.
we'd come out of a theatre and just go, you and you. Okay, that's it. But we always had to ring Joe. I didn't, but Heinz always had to stop the cars and ring Joe.
Check
and
in, wasn't it?
Joe would say things, I'm not going to swear now, but Joe would say, you're not out with the girls with that blooming Roger, are you? It wasn't quite like that.
Yeah.
But, and Heinz said, no, Joe, no. But Heinz and I had quite a hell of a time, you know.
You got a lot of fan mail as well, didn't you?
Yes, we did. But Clem was, you see, there was a rift coming between Clem and myself a bit because I was a bit of the awkward squad, wasn't I?
You was indeed, Roger.
And
yes.
he kept having goes at me and that, you know.
But Roger was like, he'd turn up late. And I said, well, we're supposed to...
And the plug board.
And there was one night we actually didn't go on because Roger hadn't turned up. And when he did turn up, I said, where the hell were you? You know, what's your... And he said, this red light came on in the car because you had a Rover then.
That's right.
What it was saying, the red light was saying there was no oil in the engine. So what happens, he's bombing along, all of a sudden the whole thing came to a dead stop. So, you know, this was...
So you had to improvise.
I was telling Clem earlier today, just after we met up this afternoon, when the Tornadoes were playing a lunchtime show at the Playhouse Theatre down by the Thames.
Yeah.
And I'd come down from up north in deep snow and everything, and I was coming through the underpass, coming from Knightsbridge to up by Green Park there. And just as I came out of the tunnel, my radio was on, and I had it tuned to the right programme, and there was Clem being asked on the programme, where's Roger? And he said, I don't know, we haven't seen him for 3 days.
We're going to have to round it up now, and I'd just like to ask, what was it like recording there? Did you get any kind of atmosphere? Because I know Alan Caddy, this is a thing I should have discussed with you a bit more before, but Alan didn't really feel that Joe contributed anything in the way of talent, apart from having a talent to know about other people's
talent, yeah, correct.
and thieving ideas. I never fully agreed with that,
Yeah.
but then I wasn't there. I've just gone on what other people say.
Alan, basically, I think Alan was probably right to a certain degree, wasn't he?
I actually, even though I thought it was a pit when I first saw that studio, I felt relaxed there because with my minimal pianisticals, I would have been completely shattered in a great big, like the Abbey Road or CBS
A lot of people have
studios.
said that, actually.
And I felt quite comfortable.
Yeah, you could, yeah.
With the
as for
ceiling
him,
falling down.
Because I know you had the problem. I mean, maybe you'd like to remind viewers of the little problem over Globetrotter, which I don't think it was your favourite record when you first heard it.
No, well, we did it. I mean, the reason was it could have sounded like Venus in Blue Jeans, you know, for start off. And I honestly think that the follow-up should have been
something powerful.
Either Love and Fury or Riding the Wind.
Yeah, even Love and
Riding
Fury,
the Wind,
yes.
you know, because that was a good.
Though
George had written
Riding the Wind was marvellous.
It was a very good record. And the thing is, Joe just happened to ask me one day. He said to me, "What do you think of it?" And I said, "I don't like it." And that was it. The whole hell broke loose. I was chased out the studios, and I was walking originally down the stairs until I heard this clatter, clatter, clatter behind me, and this tape recorder followed me down the stairs.
And all the other singles which we did after that were all Joe's, and they seemed to be getting worse.
Worse, that's right. Yeah, they did. Yeah, I mean there was no.
And we had no choice in those days. And
that was exactly.
He sold. We had a massive hit with Telstar, and then he sold us completely down the river.
Yeah.
So, hurting himself as well. I don't know why he did it. You know?
Well, because of Hines, basically, because he had more interest in Hines than he did the band. You know, that was the basic reason. But like Roger said, is quite true. That Joe wouldn't widen the horizons of getting numbers and tunes, because I'm sure there would be loads of songwriters in those days. Jerry Lorden and people like that would be jumping at the bit.
Don't forget there was the Beatles and the whole Merseybeat.
Well, the
thing.
Beatles came, yeah, but I mean, this is before the Beatles. I mean, Globetrotter was like, I mean, it went in the charts, yeah, because on the sales of the first one. I must admit, it was a very hard record to follow, Telstar. If that had been maybe a second or third release, it might have been different. But Joe was very narrow-minded about things, that he was right on everything. He never gave us any choice as to what we were going to record.
Even in this day and age, I'm still having tapes and discs sent to me from all over the UK, from young budding people, young fans they are, but they love Telstar, and they're sending space-agey things which they've done themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of them are not bad, actually. Anything would have been better than Globetrotter.
You could say Joe Meek lives on.
Well, yeah.
It was very. How did it hit you when you heard that he died? What did you think?
To be honest, it didn't surprise me, because the things I never ever thought for 1 minute that Joe would ever die a natural death.
No.
Because he was one of those guys, you know, that, if you like, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to Joe, but he was a mad genius, you know. And you know, you look through the whole business where a genius comes into the business, they never seem to die naturally. They'd either die of drugs or they'd die of. Well, like Joe did, unfortunately.
I was literally walking in Oxford Street when I saw the news for the evening papers. I saw the news thing, Pop Man kills himself, and I had to read. I didn't know who it was. When I saw it was Joe Meek, I was totally shocked, actually.
Yeah, and me. I mean, I wasn't
and poor Mrs. Shenton as well.
Yeah,
oh
Mrs.
yes.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, poor Mrs.
Nice,
and the family.
lovely lady, Mrs. Shenton.
The terrible thing is, I mean, it's Joe. I know he was out of his mind, but he screwed up his own family.
Yeah.
And the family of this poor lady.
Yeah.
And are you glad you went through all that history of the Joe Meek thing? And
yeah.
the story? Are you glad you were involved in it?
It was a part of our musical career,
yes, I am.
wasn't it? You know.
My biggest problem was Clem, but everything else was all right.
Well, the programme's over now, so you can fight it out now. Well, let the lights go down first. Thank you very much, Roger LaVern, Clem Cattini, marvellous, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching.